Welcome to Soleil After Dark, conversations on sex, trauma, and the body. A podcast guided by passionate trauma and sex therapists who talk about the stuff people don't always feel safe talking about. We're here to explore the real-life intersections of sexuality, trauma, healing, intimacy, and the mind-body connection. Our hope is that this podcast feels like a grounded, stigma-free space. One that provides thoughtful conversation, education, and rays of hope and light to those keeping their secrets, fears, memories, and the most intimate parts of their lives hidden in the shadows. This is where the shadows soften, the conversation deepens, and healing begins. Right here.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Soleil After Dark, outside of Soleil for the first time. Conversations on sex, trauma, and the body. My name is Soleil. I am a licensed clinical professional counselor, and I am joined here by a very special guest. You want to introduce yourself?
Sure. My name is Dr. Gleason. I am a physical therapist for over 20 years, and I've been here at Chicago Physical Therapist for about 8 years.
Exciting.
I specialize in pelvic health as well as general orthopedics.
Beautiful. Laura, thank you for being our first guest outside of our practice.
Yeah.
We are very excited to be here. We often refer folks to you guys, so we thought this would be a really nice way to start branching out into the community. So thank you. We're excited to learn more.
Yeah.
I wanted to start really broad for folks that are coming into this with no idea of what pelvic floor therapy is. So for those who are new, could you tell me a little bit about what is pelvic floor physical therapy and who should come in? Who does this apply to?
So pelvic floor physical therapy is a specialty area of physical therapy.
Beautiful.
Most people are familiar with PT for an ACL injury or low back pain or things like that. So pelvic floor PT is similar. We're just focusing on a more specific area.
Cool.
So anybody that is having concerns with their pelvic health, and we can go into what that might look like.
Perfect.
But they would be, good candidates to come to pelvic floor PT.
So it is really open to most people. This isn't like a very specialized, only this group can come in.
Absolutely not.
I love that.
Anyone that has a pelvis has a pelvic floor.
Perfect.
And potentially that can be working very well or can be causing some problems.
That's very helpful. What are some of the most common presentations that you guys see?
A lot of times people will think of pelvic floor PT around like pregnancy and postpartum.
Sure.
And that's certainly a big population that we see.
Absolutely.
But again, we treat all genders, anyone who has a pelvic floor. A lot of the most common things that I treat are things like urinary incontinence. So leaking urine, basically peeing when you don't want to be peeing.
Not fun.
Not fun. Urinary frequency or urgency.
Yes.
Constipation.
Sure.
Painful intercourse.
Yep.
Pain in general. So any kind of pelvic pain in general, or sometimes pain like around the pelvis that hasn't been like maybe hip pain or back pain that hasn't been responding to other kind of traditional PT. Sometimes pelvic floor PT is helpful for that.
That is actually very helpful because I think a lot of the time, again, you hear pelvic floor physical therapy, it feels so kind of insulated. It feels like a very specific thing, but it really shows how connected the whole body is. So even hip, low back pain, come in and check it out. Very helpful. We in our practice see a lot of painful sex presentations. We'll have couples or individuals coming in and reporting performance issues, difficulty having sex with their partners, and it can bring up a lot of relational problems, and that's mostly what we're working on. I'm wondering what you guys are doing over in your neck of the woods as far as like painful sex. At what point should someone come in? What does treatment typically look like? Could you tell me a little bit about when we hand people off to you guys, what happens?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, there's a lot of talking with the patient comes in. And again, similar to an experience that you might have with going to PT for your back. Like
Sure.
they're going to, the physical therapist is going to get your subjective history, hear your story.
Yes.
Even
yes.
more important when we're dealing with pelvic health, because we're dealing with intimate things, whether that's
Yeah.
painful sex or somebody, leaking urine or whatever, right?
Yeah.
There are things that, and sometimes there's some trauma in there, and we'll talk about that in a little bit too. But so really, really listening to that person's story in terms of, is this specifically with painful intercourse? Is this something that started recently? Was there a reason for that? Was that a new partner, or is it something you've always dealt with? Is it just postpartum? Is it just perimenopausal? Like there can be so many different factors, and so really listening to that person's description of what is going on for them. Is the pain more insertional? Is it a deeper type of pain? Does it go away? Does it persist? All of those things can give me a sense of what might be driving their pain, and it's important for me to know about. So once we kind of go through that aspect, then do a lot of education. So generally in pelvic health, not many people are super aware of their pelvic floor or what it does or much about it at all. We don't learn these things in health class in 5th grade necessarily. And so do a lot of education. I'm almost always busting out my pelvic model and kind of showing people what their pelvic floor is and what's going on with those muscles.
Oh, beautiful.
And so we talk about the function of the pelvic floor and what might be contributing to some of their pain.
Oh, that's helpful.
And then, like you alluded to, it's not just about the pelvis. I always say there's an entire person attached to this pelvis. And so we're looking at maybe their hip range of motion or how they're moving, how they're breathing, like kind of getting an overall assessment of their body.
Wow. It's, as I'm listening, because I'm also... For listeners, I was telling Laura when I came in, I'm newer to some of what you guys are actually doing in the space. And something that's striking me as I'm listening to you talk is just how holistic it is, right? There's like a real history and narrative piece. Let me hear about how you got here and what this has been like. There's a real like education piece, what actually is going on. You can show someone. I think that ability to see and then connect it to a feeling is so helpful for folks. And then there's this like I guess maybe behavioral, or you might have a better word for it, that like, how are you moving? How are you breathing? Are you clenching the muscles all the time? I see that a lot with clients.
Yes.
So this really is a whole, you're working with the whole person when people come in, which I think is really lovely. I imagine that would feel a lot better if I'm having someone engage with more intimate parts of me.
Exactly. I mean, so one thing that we can do in pelvic floor physical therapy is do an internal assessment. And that's something that, if we're not building that rapport and really listening to somebody and, and educating why this is indicated, someone might not feel like that's something that they want to do, right? And they may not feel like that's something they want to do, and we may never do anything internal. And that's totally... There's plenty that we can do if somebody doesn't want to go there, but that is the most effective way we can assess the muscles.
Wow. Yeah.
And so that's, kind of building up that relationship and that sense of their confidence of like, this is what we're going to do, or what one thing that we can do is super helpful.
There's also like an exercise or like activity component. We are both learning, listening, talking, and some appointments can involve actually doing something as well, learning to engage or relax the muscles. Really helpful. What do you do if someone comes in and they're also reporting like an extensive trauma history? And does that feel important to also tell your PT if that's relevant?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, I try to treat in a trauma-informed way, no matter who I'm seeing or whether or not they share anything. And I think, most people who work in this space, obviously it's a very intimate space, so kind of have that view of things. If somebody, certainly there are times where somebody comes in and does share a specific trauma history and knows that that's relevant to their care, or just knows like, just, wants me to be aware right away, like this is what's going
Yeah.
on. And so in those cases, even more so that we're kind of just being very, very aware of kind of how we're proceeding in the treatment. Really, I try to express that the patient is in charge, right? They're in charge of their body.
That's beautiful.
They're in charge of the session.
Yeah.
And creating a sense of safety for them and their system.
Yeah.
So, if they're coming in feeling, and sometimes I can just see it, right? Where they're like, I explain like, this is what an internal assessment can look like. Is that something you feel okay with today? And they're like, if it's not an enthusiastic consent, then we're not doing anything like that, right? Because it's a more intimate area.
I love that.
And so creating a sense that they can be in charge, they are in a safe space. Sometimes that involves, this room has a window in it. There's, you can hear those sirens going
city
by.
happening outside.
Obviously, you cannot see in or out, but some people may not be comfortable with that. Then I offer a more interior room that we can use. Sometimes dimming the lights, or I've had patients want to play, a certain music or calming thing on their phone, or that kind of thing. All those things can be helpful.
Oh wow.
And then just obviously the idea of consent, right? That is even more important in pelvic floor PT, and that's not just like a line that they sign on our intake forms. That's an ongoing process. And so, even if I'm just gonna touch someone's shoulder, I say like, is that okay that I can touch your shoulder? And beautiful. Them also knowing that no is an option, right? That can
huge.
They can say, so they don't need to tell me why they may not feel comfortable with doing something. We just do something else. So, so that's kind of how I approach.
I love
that depending on what the individual person is sharing or not with me, and what they need from the session.
It reminds me so much of the work that we do in therapy, because we are often coming in and really going at the pace of the individual. We also do a lot of where a lot of us are trained in somatic experiencing, because our practice owner, that's one of her specializations. And a really big part of that is not moving at a pace that doesn't feel right for the client, right? Like if someone comes in and what you need is for us to go really slowly, that actually is not getting in the way of treatment, but it's part of treatment. It's part of telling your body you're safe, you're okay, and it feels integral to the work rather than like a hurdle we're overcoming together. And that sounds so similar to what you guys are doing in here. Even the changing the rooms, changing the lights. I thought that was such this like holistic, you wouldn't think that's happening in a doctor's office. And I really love that. That feels very, very safe, very at the pace of the patient, which is cool. I did have one more question for you. As we are talking, I think a lot of folks, to your point you made earlier, are never paying attention to their pelvic floor. That is not something they think about. I know a lot of women often don't think about it until like birth, and then they're like, oh, this thing I've never considered in my life is suddenly very impacted. If someone was listening today and they wanted to start thinking about, considering doing something for, taking care of their pelvic floor, where would you have someone start? And maybe particularly if it's hard for them to find or access. I find that a lot with folks. If you cue them into, if you just say, hey, notice your pelvic floor. I have a lot of clients who are like, no idea what you're talking about. Where would you have somebody start if they wanted to?
Yeah, I mean, obviously coming into PT is super helpful if there's all sorts of different cues and different things that we can help somebody with. But in general, the breath is a really nice place to start. It's a very kind of like, way to access the pelvic floor in a way, because like you said, we can see if our biceps contracting, if we're holding tension in our jaw or our shoulders.
Yes.
Pelvic floor is a bit of a mystery for a lot of people. So, having a little bit more of a indirect route sometimes is helpful. So teaching people to breathe well, to take a really nice diaphragmatic breath and feel the pelvic floor relaxing. That kind of thing can be helpful. What's happening at the lower abs and what's happening at the glutes is often also what's happening at the pelvic floor. So some people are like, I don't know what's happening in my pelvic floor, but I sure as heck clench my glutes all day long.
Yes.
Well, they're probably clenching their pelvic floor also, right? So we can kind of do some things like that, and then
it's very helpful.
You know, being in a position like child's pose or like a deep squat where everything is really lengthened, and taking nice deep breaths that can help lengthen the pelvic floor. And if somebody is clenching and not very aware of how to relax. And then if somebody needs to kind of uptrain their pelvic floor and strengthen, then there's ways that we can work through that too.
That is so interesting. I have a background in fitness, so now a lot of what you're saying is dinging off of those parts of my brain. If this is putting you on the spot, we don't have to. Would you be open to cueing us through like a big deep breath to end, or is that stealing your work?
No.
You're like, you got to come in and see me for that.
Absolutely not.
How exciting. Okay. Well, everyone at home, you get ready. We're going to do a nice big breath together.
So if you're able to sit on something, not like a hard chair, but something that's squishy where you can kind of feel your pelvic floor a little bit, that is even more helpful. So that's like helpful. A big exercise ball or just a couch. That's actually, I'm glad you asked that, because people think like, oh, a diaphragmatic breath. Yeah. We don't necessarily know what that means or how to do that.
Totally.
So I like to cue people to breathe so they're expanding 360 degrees in their rib cage. Our diaphragm it's a dome-shaped muscle that sits in our rib cage. So if we're breathing down into our diaphragm, our ribs are expanding. So we're thinking about breathing all the way around, sometimes putting your hands.
Yeah, that might help.
To be able to kind of get that lateral expansion. And as you breathe, that diaphragm comes down, the pelvic floor should relax into ideally the softer surface.
On the inhale.
On the inhale.
Oh, yeah.
And then on the exhale is when we're engaging, everything kind of comes back up. So if you're thinking about doing like a Kegel contraction or engaging your abs, that's on the exhale.
That's crazy. Yeah. You can feel, I'm thinking of the yoga cue of like zip the belly up as you're exhaling. Everything for people listening and not watching. Doing a hand raising motion. That is really wild how much that connects with so many other, I don't know what you'd even call them, modalities. I'm thinking of all these fitness things, yoga, the work we do in therapy. It's so interconnected, the work that you guys are doing. That's really cool. Yeah. Thank you for letting us steal one of your your cues. For the folks who are listening, we love to end with what we call a ray of light. And this could be a message of hope, a thing that you want them to walk away thinking about or knowing. It could be about pelvic floor therapy. It could be about anything, being a person. What would you like to leave people with today?
I think a lot of times talking about some of these things can feel like TMI, like it feels uncomfortable. Some of these topics are taboo or seem taboo. And so, you know, I always say there's no such thing as TMI in my world. I'm sure similar to you. You've heard it all probably.
Yes, I get that.
But the reason why things feel like we're sharing too much information that feels uncomfortable is because we're given TLI or too little information. We don't.
Oh, I'm stealing that. Yeah. That's good.
Please do. We're just not educated about what's going on with our bodies. And so it feels like if somebody's like, oh, it's, you know, sex is painful, or I'm having, you know, whatever, like it feels uncomfortable to say. And that's not, it shouldn't be. The more we can talk about these things and the more we can realize that it's not, it's just because of our society and our, you know, things like that. So hopefully that is not a barrier for anybody getting the help that they need.
Yes.
Because it's never too late to come to PT. That's another thing that I like to express to people.
That. Yeah.
Some people are like, well, I've been, I'm peeing when I sneeze ever since I had my baby 10 years ago. It must be too late, you know, and that's not the case.
Wow.
So many of these things are big quality of life issues, and they can really, really be helped with PT. So.
I really appreciate your time. And if anyone is nervous about coming in, this has been such a relaxing conversation, and the space is really lovely. We are actually in their space today for the people watching. So I can't thank you enough. I have so many more questions I wish I could ask you, but unfortunately today is just an intro. It's just 101. But I can't thank you enough. This was really cool.
Great.
Thank you. For anybody who would like to reach out, where can they reach out for appointments? Is it best for them to call the practice? Is it best to reach out via y'all's website?
Either way.
Great. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Call or check out the website. And if you are interested in setting up an appointment with us here at Soleil for sex therapy, or you're experiencing some sort of pain, relationship problems, all that not so fun stuff, feel free to reach out to us as well on our website or email. Thank you guys for listening, and we will see you next time. Goodbye.
Quick reminder before you go. This podcast is for education and general information. It isn't therapy, and it's not a substitute for personalized mental health or medical care. We're therapists, but we can't offer individual advice through a podcast. So take what resonates, leave what doesn't, and if you're dealing with something tender or intense, we really encourage you to connect with a licensed professional who can support you personally.